We wouldn't recommend making friends with wild animals, but sometimes the most dangerous creatures end up becoming the ones we bond with the most. This was the case for one man who had a close encounter with wolves and followed his heart. That experience changed his life forever, and what the pack did next was amazing. Our story takes place in a small village in Russia. It was common knowledge in the area that wolves inhabited the outskirts of town. Many people felt that they were dangerous and a threat to their people. In the past, there had been some attacks on humans, and the villagers routinely told their children to be careful of the wild creatures that hid in the forest. The kids were not allowed to walk outside at night, and they needed to use the buddy system during the day. However, there were some that had a completely different view on wolves. To some, they were a means to riches. Wolf fur could be sold for a hefty price around there. The hunting laws in this region were meant to protect animals, including wolves, from being hunted for sport and for material goods like their highly valued pelts. This sadly did not stop poachers in the area from hunting and using them for their own personal gain. It was well known that the pelts of a certain color were more valuable than others, and therefore some kinds of wolves were more valued than others. At times, they had been hunted to almost extinction. Perhaps it wasn't so shocking that they would sometimes attack humans. One day, a local licensed huntsman was making his way through the forest on the outskirts of the village. He was on the hunt for wild boar, a common target for those who hunted in those woods and a legal one as well. Unlike wolves, wild boars were not quite as hunted, although they were still dangerous. He had quite a bit of experience, and so he was careful as he made his way through the woods. The huntsman knew that wild animals could come from anywhere, so he had to be observant of his surroundings at all times. Usually, when animals heard a foreign noise, they would run, unless they felt threatened and needed to stand their ground. The huntsman had had more than one frightening animal encounter in his past, and so he was cautious as he slowly moved through the woods. Not long into his journey, he heard a group of voices coming from not far ahead. As he got closer to the group, he realized that their chatter had quickly subsided, and everyone's attention was focused on what was in front of them. His heart sank as he stopped to stand with them. He had heard that kind of silence before and feared what was going to happen. No one moved or even answered him when he spoke softly. Thinking that he had spotted a boar and were terrified, he took a few steps closer to the group. It was then that he saw that the creature that they were targeting was in fact not a boar at all, but a pack of wolves. The huntsman realized that no one in the group was licensed. They were a group of poachers, and it looked like they didn't care about the strict rules on hunting wolves. He also noticed that they weren't scared at all. Rather, they were so focused that they hadn't realized that they had been caught in their illegal activity. Before he could speak up and scare the poachers away, they took their first shot. The wolves were visible in the distance when the hunter focused, and he could see that they sported the rarest type of fur. The shot rang out through the woods. The noise scared the pack, who started running, and the poachers followed suit. The huntsman was worried that the wolves would be cornered and killed and decided to follow the group. In mere moments, they entered a small clearing, but instead of running after their prey, the poachers stopped in their tracks. At first, the huntsman was confused as to why, but he soon realized that the pack had run into a frozen lake that had started to crack around them. It all happened very quickly. The ice collapsed, and the wolves started falling into the freezing water underneath. Not wanting to risk their lives in the ice, the poachers decided to turn back and stop their pursuit. The huntsman was appalled by their ruthlessness. They had hunted the wolves into a trap and now were going to abandon them to their death. They might have left, but he was still there, and he was not going to turn his back on those innocent animals. Mustering all the bravery that he had, the huntsman dropped on his belly and slid on the ice sheet, moving towards the hole the wolves had fallen in. One by one, he started to pull them out from the water by grabbing their fur and then pushing them back to the safety of the clearing. Perhaps it was adrenaline, but not once did he think about the risk he was putting himself into. He was not only surrounded by icy waters, but also by a pack of wild wolves. Once he had saved them all, he carefully got up and waited while they shook the freezing water off their fur. The huntsman looked around for something to defend himself with from their impending attack. However, what actually happened was something he could have never imagined. The wolves just walked away. The man thought it was a miracle, but perhaps the wolves had recognized his act of bravery and kindness and decided to spare him because of it. Mesmerized by the encounter, he left the woods as well and went home. He thought that their story would end like that, but that was only the beginning of their bond. The wolves still had to thank him for his kind deed and were going to do it properly. It wasn't long after this incident that the huntsman found himself back out in the woods on another hunt. He had the strangest feeling that he was being watched and followed, but couldn't see or hear another person walking. It wasn't long before he realized that he was actually being watched by the same pack of wolves he had saved a few weeks earlier from the frozen lake. At first, the man was very alarmed because he thought that they were stalking their prey and waiting for the right moment to attack. Quickly, he abandoned his hunt and went back to the village. About a week later, when he ventured back into the forest, the same situation occurred. This time, however, the man did not flee in fear because he realized that their close presence couldn't be a simple coincidence. If they had truly wanted to attack him, they already would have. After all, wolves were known for being very smart creatures and very loyal. Of course, sometimes they were dangerous, but they could also be affectionate. That day, one of the wolves slowly made its way out from its hiding spot behind the trees and took a few steps towards the man. The wolf was holding something in its mouth and dropped the item onto the forest floor before backing away. Slowly, all of the wolves disappeared into the woods until eventually only the huntsman was left in the clearing. He walked over to the item that the wolf had dropped and saw that it was the remains of a small squirrel. The huntsman realized that the wolves had brought him an offering, as if he was one of their own, to thank him from saving them from certain death. From that day forward, the huntsman knew that he had friends in that forest. He made it his mission to spread the message of protecting nature and all that live in it to the villagers. He was determined to make sure that those wolves were never put in danger by humans again, and we all hope they listened. Our world is filled with predators, but it's not always wild animals who are the most dangerous ones. As humans, we need to take action and steps towards preserving nature and those that live in it. If we don't, what kind of a world will we have in the end? How would you make sure wild animals are protected from poachers in the most isolated forests in the world? Tell us in the comments section below. Thank you for watching and see you next time.